The radio wasn't supposed to work. The old fire tower had been abandoned for decades before the Forest Service restored it as a seasonal lookout. Ranger Ethan Cole had spent 3 quiet weeks alone on the mountain, surrounded by endless forests, thick fog, and silence. The only sounds were the wind and the occasional crackle from the antique emergency radio mounted beside the window. Everyone told him the radio was only there for history. It hadn't connected to another tower in years. Then, at exactly 2:17 in the morning, the speaker came alive. A terrified voice whispered, "Tower 4, do you copy? The fire isn't natural. It's coming toward us." The transmission ended in screaming. The strange part? Tower 4 had burned to the ground in 1987. Ethan wasn't superstitious. He had worked wildfires for nearly 10 years. Smoke, storms, isolation, and long nights never bothered him. His new assignment seemed simple: watch for smoke, record weather conditions, report any fires. The tower stood nearly 7,000 feet above sea level, overlooking miles of untouched wilderness. No tourists, no cabins, no roads for nearly 30 miles. Only endless trees stretching beyond the horizon. His nearest co-worker was stationed in another lookout tower over 20 miles away. Most days passed quietly. Every evening Ethan climbed the narrow stairs, brewed coffee, checked his binoculars, and watched the sunset disappear behind the mountains. Locals warned him about strange radio interference. They laughed whenever they mentioned Tower 4. According to them, every few years, someone heard voices coming from its old frequency. Ethan dismissed it as mountain folklore, until the first transmission arrived. The radio crackled again the following night. "Tower 7, answer me." The voice sounded exhausted. Male, around 40 years old, heavy breathing. Static swallowed every other sentence. "They're in the trees. Don't let them see the light. They don't like fire anymore." Ethan immediately reached for the modern satellite radio. He contacted headquarters. No active towers were transmitting. No maintenance crews were nearby. No emergency calls had been logged. When he replayed the recording, there was only static. The voice had disappeared completely, as if it had never existed. That should have been the end of it. The calls became more frequent. Every night. Exactly 2:17 a.m. Always ending with the same desperate sentence: "Don't let it reach your tower." Ethan finally searched the old archives, stored inside a dusty filing cabinet. Most contained weather reports, maintenance logs, wildfire maps. Then he found a thin folder labeled Tower 4, Final Incident, August 1987. The last page had been removed. The missing page bothered Ethan more than the radio calls. The report described a routine lightning-caused wildfire on the eastern ridge. 3 lookouts were assigned to monitor its spread. The fire was expected to burn itself out within 2 days. But every page after that became increasingly strange. Weather conditions no longer matched satellite records. Entire sections had been blacked out with thick marker. Several handwritten notes filled the margins. "Ignore visual movement after dark. Do not leave the tower if you hear voices below. Keep all lights off after 2:15 a.m. The final readable sentence stopped abruptly: "If the fire changes direction against the wind." Nothing else remained. The last page, the conclusion, was gone. That evening Ethan contacted Forest Service headquarters again. He asked about Tower 4. The woman on the radio went silent. Finally she answered, "Those records aren't complete anymore." "What happened there?" "You were assigned to Tower 7. "I know. Then stay in Tower 7. The transmission ended. No explanation, no goodbye, only silence. 2 nights later, Ethan spotted smoke. A thin gray column rose from the exact location where Tower 4 once stood. He checked the weather. No lightning, no campers, no heat signatures appeared on the satellite wildfire system. There was no fire. Still, the smoke continued climbing into the sky, By sunrise, it had vanished, as if it had never existed. The next afternoon, Ethan packed a backpack with emergency supplies, a flashlight, a GPS, and his service rifle. He decided to hike to the ruins. The trail hadn't been used in decades. Young pine trees had swallowed most of the path. Broken signs leaned sideways beneath thick moss. 3 hours later, he reached the hilltop. Tower 4 was exactly where the old map said it would be, or at least, what remained of it. The steel legs were twisted from intense heat. Blackened wooden beams lay scattered across the ground. The observation cabin had collapsed years ago. Nature had almost erased the disaster. Almost. Something caught Ethan's attention. Fresh boot prints. Not old, not weathered. Someone had walked through the ash within the last day. He followed the tracks. They circled the burned tower once, then stopped. There were no return footprints, no second trail, no sign that anyone had left. It was as if the person had simply disappeared. A cold breeze swept across the ridge. Then his handheld radio burst to life. The same terrified voice. But this time it wasn't asking for help. It was speaking directly to him. Ethan. He froze. He had never told anyone his name over the old radio. The voice continued. "You're standing where we died." The transmission dissolved into static. Suddenly the smell of smoke filled the air. Not old smoke. Fresh smoke. Ethan looked toward the trees. Small orange lights flickered between the trunks. 1, then 3, then dozens. They looked like wildfire flames, except they weren't spreading. They were moving, slowly, silently, and every one of them was coming toward him. Ethan backed away from the ruins, keeping his flashlight aimed at the glowing lights between the trees. They didn't flicker like normal flames. They moved with purpose. Each orange glow stayed at the same height, weaving silently through the forest. No crackling, no smoke, no sound of burning branches. Only the wind. His survival instincts took over. He raised his binoculars. The lenses focused. His stomach dropped. The lights weren't floating. Someone, or something, was carrying them. Tall, dark figures walked slowly between the pines, each holding what looked like an old kerosene lantern. Yet the light they gave off wasn't yellow. It burned a deep orange, like the heart of a wildfire. Ethan counted them. 8, then 9, then 10. The last figure stopped. Even from hundreds of yards away, he felt as if it was staring directly at him. The radio hissed again. "Don't let them see you move." The voice was calm now, older, almost resigned. Ethan slowly lowered himself behind the collapsed foundation of the tower. He didn't breathe. The line of lanterns stopped advancing. For nearly a full minute, nothing happened. Then, one by one, every lantern turned toward the mountain where Tower 7 stood. Not toward Ethan, toward his lookout. As if that had been their destination all along. Without another sound, the figures disappeared into the trees. The lights blinked out. The forest became dark again. Ethan ran. By the time Ethan reached Tower 7, dawn was breaking. He locked the tower door and searched every archive, every cabinet, every storage box. There had to be something the missing report didn't mention. Hidden beneath a loose floorboard, he found a small metal tin. Inside was a cassette tape wrapped in a weathered plastic bag. A handwritten label read, "If anyone finds this, don't trust the official report." Fortunately, the tower still had an old cassette player used for historical demonstrations. Ethan pressed play. Static filled the room. Then a man's voice spoke. "My name is Daniel Mercer. Fire lookout, Tower 4. If you're hearing this, they erased what really happened." He took a shaky breath. It wasn't the wildfire that killed us. The fire stopped at the ridge. What came out of the smoke didn't. Daniel explained that on the final night of August 1987, Every lookout tower on the mountain lost radio contact at exactly 2:17 a.m. Moments later, strange lights appeared in the forest. The lookouts assumed they were firefighters carrying lanterns. They weren't. Anyone who climbed down to investigate never came back. Those who stayed inside watched the lights circle their towers until sunrise. Daniel and his partner broke the safety rules. They left the tower to rescue someone they believed was calling for help. It knew our names. It sounded exactly like us. The voices came from the trees. The recording paused. Several seconds of heavy breathing followed. Then Daniel whispered, "If you're in Tower 7, they're not trying to reach us anymore. They're trying to reach you." A loud crash echoed through the recording. Wood splintered. Glass shattered. The tape ended with one final sentence. "Whatever happens, don't answer the knock." At that exact moment, 3 slow knocks echoed from the door below Ethan. Knock, 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 knock. Ethan checked every window. No one was outside. The staircase wrapping around the tower was completely empty. Then the old emergency radio crackled one last time. A voice, this time identical to Ethan's own, whispered, "Open the door." The knocks came again, slower, closer, even though no footsteps had ever climbed the stairs.